Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll be building out some objects in the back window area. And let me just go ahead and pull up my reference here so I can show you what I'm talking about. And we are going to go through and build these bad boys here. And just to grab another shot of it, we're talking about those here. And so I've got multiple views, so I kind of have an idea of how they conform to the shape of the car. And my top view tells me pretty much how they look. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and hop back into 3D Studio Max. I'll switch to our top view. I'll turn on X-ray mode on my mesh. I'll add an edit poly, and we're just going to go through and build these out. And there's two ways you can go about this. You can go ahead and actually drag edges out to conform to what we have here, or the other option, and the one I prefer, is to actually just build the geometry for this and then move it and snap it into position. The key thing to remember there is that you need to have edges that correspond to the current edges on your mesh, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a sec. But to go ahead and do that, I'll drag a plane, and I'm just needing a piece of geometry. This could be anything, just any piece of flat geometry, but a plane works best for that. What I'll do is I'll apply an edit poly, and then I'll just start repositioning these verts to match my reference. So I'll grab this edge here and just move it up. I'll grab it again and move it here, because I can see a corresponding edge there. And then move it here, because there's a vert sitting here. I can just switch to my body mesh, and yep, there's that vert. I'll go back to the model I'm working on, switch back to edge mode, and move that to correspond there. Now from this point on, it's grabbing verts and then adding edges to make sure everything syncs up. So I'll just grab these verts and start repositioning them. And so it's a matter of grabbing everything, moving it around. And again, this is where the reference comes in pretty handy. While you don't have to be exactly on it, just having those guidelines as to where your verts should end up is really helpful. We'll just grab this edge here, extrude, switch to vertex mode, and the hotkey for that is 1. And then extrude again, move that over. Excellent. And so what you could do here is basically now just grab that edge and repeat the process. Start working your way back down. And some people prefer to shape this as they go. It really depends. I tend to drag the edges out first and then go in and reshape them. It really doesn't matter how you do it. And I switch between the two methods. What's important is that you're moving your points to align with your reference image. And so it's the same process, just grabbing edges, moving them. And of course, turn on your grid to make sure you know where your center line is. And grab these verts and move them out to your center line, similar to what we've been doing so far. So that when you mirror everything with your symmetry, things get moved over and they just snap right in the middle. All right. Another cool thing you can do is when you're working on a model like this, and I've used this quite a bit in the process, is you can right now this one's fine because the pivot, or actually it's not fine, the pivot is a bit off. And so what you could do is you could try to effect pivot and move the pivot over to get it sitting on the center line there. But to kind of take the guesswork out of it, once I have one piece, or my body, my main piece, with the correct pivot set, I simply just go in, and that's why I added the edit poly modifier earlier. Select my model and go to attach. Oops. And then attach the new piece that I've just created. And now, if I add the symmetry, you'll see that it's a part of the original body object, and it mirrors across perfectly because it's now using the pivot location off that original model that we had fixed the pivot on initially. And so what you can do here, once you've done that, is you can actually go back into element mode. I'll drag this out so you can see. And just select that element, and since we're still working on it, you can go ahead and just detach it for now. And that's so we can continue working on it. And you can do that at any point in the process, but whenever you're going to add symmetry and see what's going on, it's a good idea to do that so you get an idea of what's happening. And so now the pivot's there, and the pivot of my body is there, and so they both have pivots in the same area. All right, so back on this, I'll switch back to element mode, and what I'm going to do now is just move this element up. And what we're working on here basically is repositioning everything that we've modeled so that it matches up with our mesh. And from this point on, you can rotate if you need to. And just try to get everything positioned properly. Another way you can get things snapped up properly is to basically switch to, say, edge mode, hit spacebar to lock your selection, turn on snaps, and just right click on your snap settings, make sure you're snapping to verts, and just snap to vert. And that's going to move that in place and snap it to that vertex there. And with something like this, typically I try to get edges corresponding between the different objects I'm working on. However, you wouldn't have to worry too much about this edge here because we'll be adding thickness to the body, and so if there wasn't a perfect snap, you wouldn't really see it once we add the thickness to the body part here. But if you really want to, you could go in, select your body mesh, go to edit poly, add an edge, and then you could have a vert here to snap this vertex to. And so you know it's a perfect snap at that point. Then you could go back in and just remove that edge. And I double click to select it and then hit Control Backspace. Again, just a matter of how you work and what you want to do. And so I'll also hop in and switch to my back viewport. And turn down the transparency on my blueprint so I can see what's going on. And then from here, make sure your snaps is turned off, and then you can adjust these to conform to the outline of your reference/blueprint image. That concludes this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next. Thank you.